Perfect. So, thank you, everyone, for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, where you may be. Today's session is about transforming quality insights into a competitive advantage with Sauce Labs. So, quick intros. My name is Carlos Carvajal. I am a senior PMM here at Sauce Labs. With me is the distinguished Marcus Morel, who needs no introduction, but I'll let him do it anyway. Go ahead, Marcus.
I probably need a little introduction. Yeah, I'm Marcus Merrill. I've been at Sauce Labs for 7 years, and I was actually, fun fact, I was a customer for 8 years before that. I've been in quality assurance, architecture, test automation for about 25 years, and I sort of dedicated my entire career to it. So I've been all around. I've worked in many industries, and if we're talking about things that we've done, good and bad, I've probably done all of them. So glad to share all that with you today.
Perfect. Okay, let's jump right in. So, let's start with a very simple question. So what is the real cost of a bad digital experience? And now we can measure this in several ways. Obvious is the loss of a sale, right? Immediate impact. But how about organizational credibility, right? Reputation and word of mouth. We're all consumers. We've all been there. We go to make a purchase. We have decided, we've done our research. We could click on buy or purchase now, and there's a glitch. I can't make the purchase. The organization loses a sale. And that's just one example. What about a full-scale outage? Right? That's a big problem. And so we've done a study, and here you see the percentage, which to me is surprising. Not that it's 70%, it's that it's not 10 or 20 points higher than this. To be quite honest. And then the negative impact. So 3 touch points. Again, I'm a little alarmed. One could make the case, okay, maybe there's a network error. Next, you go try. Maybe it's the site has some outage, some glitch. Okay, the next time you go, and 3 strikes and you're out. That's how it goes. So we need to be very careful. Every touch point counts. And so here's the customer quote from the study. It wasn't a glitch. Instead of purchasing 1 time, I bought it 5 times. So ouch. And nobody wants that in their wallet. Nobody wants that bad experience. And then when it comes to word of mouth, you're gonna tell your friend, your colleagues, this is what happened when I went to the site. And that's no good. So are we there yet? So talking to customers, talking to different teams, organizations, we find it very rare there are high performers, meaning everyone's ready in terms of their applications, in terms of their processes, especially large organizations where it's matrixed, there are different tools, different teams, and some of them tend to be siloed. So we're seeing the same kind of theme with each conversation in terms of velocity of innovation, engineering efficiency, and trying to mitigate risks, making sure that bugs don't go out in the world, in the wild. We have some additional stats, meaning 16 hours to get through a typical QA cycle. 16 hours could be good or bad, depending, but if we take it into context, that's 2 full days before a developer gets feedback. So that seems pretty long. 70% of teams expect cost and scale pressure at testing, right? Because organizations want to grow. As organizations grow, there's going to be more pressure, more demand on the teams to get those applications and features out more quickly. And this is my favorite, my favorite one. 61% of developers admit to pushing untested code to production. Now, that seems high, 61. I think it's a lot more because 61 are those who admit it. Folks who do not admit it. So I'm expecting 61 to be very conservative. And so that causes obvious problems that you guys know already. Pushing code out without actual testing it, it could be a huge problem.
One thing that leaps out at me is I don't know if any of y'all have checked out the Developers Behaving Badly report. It's a survey we did last year, kind of right after AI made its first splash and before the rise of agents and MCP. But there were a lot of interesting statistics buried in there, like 61% of developers admit to pushing code to production without testing it, but a shocking like 75% of those were pushing AI generated code to production without testing, which is terrifying. So
Yeah.
it's worth checking out that report if you haven't yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this slide right here illustrates another problem that people might not even fully understand that they're dealing with every day, which is that when you're writing tests for scale, automated tests for scale, and you're trying to shift that scale to the left and you put it earlier in the development cycle, you're now confronted with the maintenance burden of having to do all this stuff on infrastructure that you have to then manage, and it becomes a part of your job. Like if you're maintaining a Selenium grid or a host of phones, devices, iPads, things like that that you're trying to test on, then you start to put more and more work into that in order to keep everything up to date. And if you don't keep everything up to date, then it saves you time, but then it opens you up to things like vulnerabilities and missing out on the latest releases. Every dot on this timeline right here represents a change that was made to either a browser or a mobile operating system or a testing framework, meaning not just a test framework like you might have in house, but also something like XCUI test or Espresso, which are made by Apple and Google, respectively, that you don't control and that you have to now adopt the changes for. Then there's operating systems like Windows, Linux, Mac OS pushing updates, new devices hitting the market. And every single dot on this graph represents a point of maintenance time that you now have to spend getting your infrastructure up to date in a way that really just doesn't have anything to do with your business. Like when you spend a couple hours updating some AMI so that it can be folded into your Selenium grid because you needed a latest version of Firefox, it's a couple hours that you were not spent focusing on your customers. Why would you want to maintain that stuff yourself? So that's what we're trying to get at here today is taking the test signal and distilling your work down to the barest essence of what you need to do in order to make sure your software is delivering on its promise and delighting your users rather than just eking along and creating as many tests as you possibly can, maintaining infrastructure that doesn't have anything to do with your job. So that's where Sauce's value add is, and that's what we're talking about today. So with that, let me show some stuff. So this morning I spent a little bit of time running a whole bunch of tests on my Sauce Labs account. As you can tell, I'm plus 549% over the last week because I didn't run that many tests last week. I was traveling. So I ran a whole bunch of tests, and here's the pass rate, here's the error rate, here's the build pass rate because I'm running multiple builds at a time. For those of you who want to see code, I'm not going to show you code, but I'm going to show you that these are essentially Maven tests that I run in Java to generate tests at scale. I'm running them 20, 30, 40 at a time using TestNG framework or JUnit or something like that. And I ran these jobs in order to create test results within Sauce Labs. And these tests are running on Sauce Labs remotely. And you can actually see that my device usage is going to start ticking up here as the tests run. I believe these tests are not running in parallel, they're running just a couple at a time. But when you come into Sauce Labs and you want to try to figure out how you can get out of the business of maintaining your infrastructure, and let's say, for instance, a bug report comes in and they send it straight to the testing department or the developers, and they say, there's somebody who's, for some reason, they're using Firefox version 42 and they're testing on our website, and I don't know why they're doing it, but no, let's go to Sauce Demo. They're running Firefox, ancient version of Firefox, and nobody around here has that, and we can't get an image for it on AWS. So let's just make sure we can go dial in Firefox version 42, go to saucedemo.com because that's just what we're going to, and then hit start. Now you're running Windows 11 Firefox version 42 at this set resolution, and within a matter of seconds, it's going to launch me into a web browser that replicates that ancient environment. It is entirely possible that the saucedemo.com website is not designed to work on Firefox 42. So let's go to Google. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, browser that was released many, many years ago. But this happens a lot with customers. I see people who haven't updated their OS in years. They have a problem. They still need to do the thing that they're trying to do. And if you're generating revenue, you should be able to understand, what am I actually, how much money am I making off of each version of each browser that we launch at any given point? And then you say, I'm gonna pass this test because I'm gonna just move on. I'm gonna do cross browser. I'm going to work on a mobile real device. And these are the real devices I can actually run a test on a piece of iron that is Apple. Somebody comes in and says, I need to be able to replicate a thing on an iPhone 7. Then I'd be able to find one back here. We may not have any 7s left. R, XR. This is a sufficiently old phone, but it's going to do the same thing. It's going to initialize a real device. This is a real device in San Jose, California, that is being initialized right now to launch Safari and go to the demo app. And I can manipulate this. I can do whatever I need. I can log in as standard. And then I can and the cool thing about it is that this is a real device. I can attach DevTools. I can look at the network calls that are being made on the back end. There aren't any on this particular site because it doesn't actually have an API. But I can also look at logs that are happening on the device in real time as they are happening. So these are, like I said, real iPhones. You no longer have to maintain a stack of iPhone XRs and iPhone 11s that have gone way out of they're basically EOL, but they still work, and some people still have them. If you think about what I always invite people to do is look at the demographics of the people who are using their products. So you imagine the social media site, TikTok, something like that. They're probably going to have a lot of people with the latest phones. They're the 17s and the latest Androids. But if you are dealing with something like assisted living or Medicare or something like that, where you're dealing with a different demographic, different population, then you need to account for the fact that your audience might be using an iPhone 11 and they might be perfectly happy to it. I myself, I'm using an iPhone 13 mini. It's an ancient phone. It's my second one, and I have a backup one at home just in case. Why? Because I love the form factor. Maybe people don't want to upgrade for various reasons, but you need to understand. This is where I invite people in dev and QA both to speak to their business intelligence people to understand the signals that are coming in. What devices are people using on our site or with our app? What are they doing with it? What are they and how are they arriving at it? Like, the more you understand about the users that are actually doing work on your platform, the better you will be off. And then you can project that onto your testing. So after I've run my tests, I have a set of results, and it actually captured a video of everything that happened during that session. Here's where I was fumbling around because I couldn't load up Sauce Demo. And here's where I went to Google. And you can get, it automatically takes screenshots periodically. Here's the logs of everything that happened. And then if you enable network capture, it will actually capture the network traffic, which I think is fascinating. You could download a HAR file after a HAR file being an HTTP archive, meaning you can actually capture all of the API calls that your website made while it was being run. You can do this with mobile devices also. It's a very powerful feature. Then you can look at the test data that was created to initialize this test. So over here, when we want to see the results of all the automated tests I've run today, we can look through here. And you go into test results and you can see all the 350 tests I ran today, which show you everything in chronological order. What to me is a lot more interesting is the fact that I ran these things in different builds, and the builds will group the tests together as a series of tests that might have arbitrary and bad names. Don't name your tests by numbers like this. So my tests have been running and they work. Unfortunately, with this demo, all these tests pass. I wanted to show one that has a failure. So let's look at one that failed. And these tests they failed intentionally. And then we're able to see, it may not have failed enough times to see an actual pattern, but one thing that we do, I think a lot of QA folks out there will understand the relevance of this. You run a whole bunch of automated tests, and then one day you've got 40 failures when yesterday there were 5, and the number spikes. What we generally find is that there was one change made to the application that you're testing, and then one change to the tests will cause all those tests to pass again. Sound off in the chat if you've had that situation before. What we have created here is a tool called failure analysis, which will actually look at the patterns of failures we see, which will group the failures together. I don't have enough data in here to make this critical mass to show this feature working as well as it should. But this is something I get that to work here. If we This is a way of being able to unify all the failures that you have within a build so that you can understand what the root cause is, so you can fix them all. And then it'll prioritize and guide your work and help you debug so that you don't have to worry about investigating one and then figure out that the second and the third and the fourth are all from the same issue. In the insights area, you can start to see trends and patterns and things that are happening all over your testing suites. It'll start to gather and summarize different things. It'll group tests together and start to show you what's happening inside your tests consistently. And this kind of thing is really good for trying to figure out from a manager perspective, what is the overall, like how well put together is my testing program? Is it failing in flaky ways? Is it failing in consistent ways? But then I want to show this new feature that we're adding, that it should be rolled out to every current customer, but is also in the process of being enhanced at the moment, where we have kind of a whole organizational summary, which you can change if you filter it differently. Now, I am the same as my organizations, but this gives you sort of a plot summary of what's happening at the org and team level with everything and what devices and what browsers you're running on. I don't have enough failures on mobile devices to even populate this tab, but then it shows you the different builds that are happening, as well as visual builds, we'll get to in a moment, and then failure analysis, which, like I said, don't have enough data on there. If you'll notice the sparkle here, check it out. SOS AI support coming soon. Yeah, so it identifies, it's able to identify flaky test cases, and then it's able, when there's enough data to create a critical mass, it's able to group those failures and tell you what the pattern looks like. And then separate everything by builds, like I said. This is a really cool way that we're rolling out now to help people understand overall what's going on. And you can also filter this by, like I said, by team, not just by the whole organization. That if you're running a massive organization, you can subdivide it to something that makes sense for you. You can filter based on time, and eventually you can filter essentially based on build, which will really give you the ability to understand what's going on and whether or not you should have confidence in the release that you're trying to put out right now. I've run a few visual tests, and I want to illustrate one thing. I've heard over the years, many people express the sentiment that we no longer need to test anything more than Chrome latest, and I want to use this as a testimony that that is not true. I ran these tests right here on October 24th. Yeah, October 24th. Is that right? Yeah, so I ran this test October 24th, and then I ran this test today, October 28th. I ran this on Chrome version 130, and I ran this test on Chrome version 141. And as you can see, the visual testing tool will tell you there is a slight shift in how these pixels are rendered. And that is due to some change that was made inside the HTML rendering engine of Chromium. Everything shifted to the right just a little bit. And if you zoom in, we took a baseline, like I said, we took a baseline on Chrome 130, and then we compared it to Chrome 141. And we could see that these elements were altered by the change in the version of Chrome that was released. We did not change saucedemo.com. It didn't change at all. This is purely about the browser and how the browser renders everything that it's doing. So if you think that you can just test on Chrome and not worry about anything at all, you ought to understand that periodically there are things that happen, and they're not magic, but they are too plentiful for me to be able to articulate here or even investigate in some cases. But if you think about the difference between Chrome version 130 and Chrome version 141, there's probably only about a 4 months difference between those two versions. But then think about the difference between Chrome and Safari, Chrome and Firefox, Chrome and Edge. Even Chrome and Edge sometimes can be different because there's more to a browser than just its rendering engine. But with using Sauce Visual, you can prove these kinds of things. You can understand what is happening visually on my application. And you can start to see if I were to move from the old version to the new version, here's the actual change that was made. And here's what it looked like in the DOM. The differences are very similar. They are different. Now, what I can do in Sauce Visual is decide that, well, if this is the way Chrome is now, this is just the way Chrome is. So I'm going to approve this baseline and say, this change is as expected. So this is okay. I'm going to pass these tests. One thing that we have done deliberately with visual testing is we have made the decision that there will always be a human in the loop or the comparison. There are other tools out there that will decide for you, there are changes here, but they're not big enough for you to worry about with aliasing and stuff like that. We have a little bit of that in terms of we use multiple special algorithms that are actually open source that will compare aliasing and text and stuff like that to see if there really is a visual difference between them. And if there isn't, then we will go ahead and pass it. If there is a visual difference that falls within a threshold, we will go ahead and say, we're gonna still have you approve this because there needs to be a human in the loop here. At this point, we have not yet found the magic algorithm that solves. We don't think it exists. Now, I ran this test a little bit later, once again, using Chrome 141 on both, and it indicates that the test, the page is exactly the same when you run against the same Chrome version. We didn't make any changes to the product underneath. Now, I do want to indicate there is two different magic powers you have when you use Sauce Visual. Well, there's more than two. Two of the magic powers you have when you use Sauce Visual are the ability to do something, for example, ignore a region. Say, for example, this is dynamic. This backpack picture right here. Let's pretend for a moment that this could change based on the ranking of the offers or the images on the page, the items on the page. You could flag this element either by using a box or by identifying its DOM locator. And you could say, ignore this because I know it's dynamic. Don't compare this in the future. And then if it sees a difference within that bounding box, it will simply ignore it. And that saves you a lot of time when you have dynamic ads and dynamic content running in there. The other thing you can do that's really powerful is take a piece of the DOM, like an element or like something like that, piece of text, something like this. And you can say, I want to ignore this particular DOM attribute. So the way that would manifest is I would say, I want to ignore the text here in case you're running, say, different languages on the site, French to English. You could say, ignore the text, but everything else should be visually similar. And it will take that and allow you to do internationalization testing with very little effort. You can ignore other kinds of attributes like image source, link, destination, that kind of thing. And it'll still be aware of the difference, but it won't flag it for the human to inspect because it's just noise at that point or to do that. The cool thing to me about Visual is how seamlessly it is integrated into the product. Let me stop sharing for just a second, pull up some code, and actually, I said I wasn't going to show you code, but I'm going to show you. Let me make sure I've got the right project open. Cool. So here is the way you invoke a visual spec is simply by invoking an SDK. You instantiate the SDK. This is Java. I'm sorry if it is non-Java. You create a visual object by you passing in the same WebDriver. So the visual object uses the same WebDriver that you're using inside your test in order to be able to grab the screenshot. And then whenever you grab a screenshot, you say sauce visual check. It already has the instance of the WebDriver inside it. And then you can create options. You don't have, all this stuff is optional depending on what you're trying to accomplish, but you can create all sorts of different options within it to fine tune and tweak the snapshot that it's taking. Truth is, if you just do this much code right here, you will capture a screenshot that will be put into the product. And the nice thing about this, the way we implemented it is, it is a call that is made to our cloud, which forms the task asynchronously within our cloud. So normal visual tools require you, even the ones that I'm aware of where the infrastructure is hosted by the same company that has the visual product, you have to download the screenshot to your client and then upload the screenshot to a separate service. So megabytes of image data, especially if you're using lots and lots and lots of screenshots, it's all being pulled down to your client and then pushed back up to the cloud service. Whereas with Sauce Labs, it's all in the same place, all happening on the same machine, all at the same time. So you're able to order up a snapshot and then not have it block your test. It blocks your test for maybe 1 second. And at some point, I think some versions of this API, it's a GraphQL API. I believe it actually does it asynchronously. So it literally just comes right back. It doesn't even block anything to take the screenshot. So sorry, went a little technical on that one, but I think the point is made. It is extremely simple to just add single line screen of code to create a screenshot to let you do a comparison to make sure that your site looks correct. If there are any questions about that, please let me know, because we love this tool and we talk about it all the time.
Reach out to us. If you're a customer, reach out to your CSM. If not, please reach out to our sales rep, our customers. Go to our website. You could contact fill out your information and contact us through that medium. Next. And then any questions? I know we spent a lot of time on some stats. Marcus did a great demo on visual, on the platform itself. Any questions from the audience? If not, we received a few from a couple of the registration folks. Okay, I'll tease one up here, Marcus.
Oh, yeah.
So how does Sauce Labs integrate with our existing CI/CD pipeline and testing frameworks?
Well, so it's the very different answers for those two things. Testing frameworks wise, we integrate with Selenium, Appium, XUI, Espresso, Playwright, Cypress, Test Cafe, Robot, Cucumber, you name it, we integrate with it. Like if you are sending any of the standard protocols for testing software, we will pretty much be able to test on. Now, as to kicking it off and folding it into the CI/CD system, the best way to do that is through like essentially what amounts to a shell command or a batch file. Using that technique, we can run on anything. There's really, at this point, you as the user control how the tests get persisted to Sauce Labs. And that means that you have to run a Maven command or a Gradle command or a Mocha command or something like that in order to kick the tests off. But any way you do that, especially, it works exactly the same way as a developer running any kind of unit tests. It will work. And if everything is configured correctly with credentials and all that stuff, it gets woven into Jenkins or Bamboo or GitLab or GitHub Actions, and you can just execute the shell command like that. If it is Playwright, Cypress, Test Cafe, XCUI, or Espresso Test, it gets run using a Sauce Labs CLI called Sauce CTL, Sauce Control, which is available on our website in documentation, where you can run any of those kinds of tests on Sauce Labs infrastructure without having to maintain that stuff yourself.
That's perfect. I hope whoever asked the question is online to get that. One additional question: what level of technical expertise is needed on our team to get started?
Well, for the manual testing piece, live testing, no expertise. You just need to be able to log into the user interface and start up a session, and your launch, you're just right in it. A little bit more expertise involved in creating automated tests, and I think one thing I've seen people do really, really well lately is use just a standard LLM to sort of become a teacher and say, teach me how to use something like Selenium or Appium. Those, I'm wary of using AI for brand new technologies, like brand new, like stuff that's just coming out right now. But in terms of teaching you how to use well-worn, well-established frameworks and stuff like that, it's really good. Say, prepare me a lesson plan and just have you work through it. You can get a lot done out of Selenium with very, very little experience or skill level. You just need to ramp up. I'd say ramp up slowly, learn the fundamentals, and then learn about abstraction and how to make your code more durable.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think those are the main questions we had. Any last words, Marcus?
I don't think so. Happy testing. I know Black Friday's coming up, so anyone in retail is probably either scrambling or already past code freeze, and really nothing you can do at this point. So good luck with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Hopefully AWS learned its lesson from the most recent outage and it won't happen again.
I'm sure they're getting an earful over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, folks, again for joining and spending a few minutes with us, and we'll see you next time.